Yeah, I mean, you definitely create some very memorable lines, right? And for our listeners who are watching or have watched Steven's content before, tips in the ER, mother.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not saying that right, but it's awesome that you're able to come up with such memorable taglines, right? How'd you even learn to like do those taglines? Like, was it taught in those improv classes or something you just instinctively came up with to add more
No,
humor to it? How'd you come up with these two taglines?
I have no idea. It was literally my friend was trying to help me. He was like, dude, just like you work in the ER. Like, tell us what's happening in the ER. Give us some tips from the ER. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Maybe I'll do that one.
Yeah.
It was literally like, I was trying to figure out how to how to say it in front of a camera where like people remember. So, it starts off tips from the ER, and I would give a little tip from the ER. The
Yeah.
mother thing was not premeditated. It happened because I was trying to commit. I was trying to commit to the bit to make it interesting to keep people engaged. And it kind of it just happened. It literally just happened.
All right. Steven, thank you so much for hopping on our podcast today. I'm going to ask you a very loaded question. Take us all the way back to the beginning, Steven. Tell us more about yourself.
All the way back to the beginning. I grew up in the Bay Area, a little town. I was born in San Jose, and if anybody knows where that is, big Vietnamese community down there. I was born in San Jose, went to high school in Milpitas, which is like a city right over. So my parents finally decided to buy a house and move out of this tiny little dinky townhouse we grew up in. Um, it was a 3-bedroom townhouse that I grew up in. It 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 we had my grandma and grandpa, my mom and dad, and me and my 3 sisters. So there's 8 of us in this tiny little townhouse, connected to like 3 other houses. And yeah, man, I grew up, my grandparents raised me mostly because my parents were out working. They owned businesses. Parents came over and opened up a clothing store business in downtown San Jose, where my dad would drive down to LA with a van to pick up clothes because it was cheaper down there. Brought it back up to San Jose to sell in a store, and then from there, my dad opened a restaurant, a restaurant in
Wow.
Fremont. Yeah, and I think I was still in elementary or middle school when they opened the restaurant. So they had these 2 businesses going. Eventually gave up the clothing store business, worked full time with the restaurant business in Fremont. Did well. I was surrounded by it. I grew up, typical Asian immigrant family. Grew up in a restaurant, right? And then I think from there I went to graduated high school. They opened another restaurant in Milpitas, sold the Fremont one,
Amazing.
opened the one in Milpitas, just to be closer to the family. And then I went to college and they finally sold it and decided to take like desk jobs. But
Wow.
yeah, I grew up in restaurants and pho restaurants.
Wow. That's really, really awesome to hear, right? It's also very typical of a Vietnamese American experience as well, or just an Asian American experience. And
Mhm.
just being surrounded by so much hustle, right? Our parents always fell upon what they knew best, which is restaurants and finding things for cheap and selling for a profit, right? Your basic business model. And it's relatable, right? To your story about I guess like in my experience too, I grew up in a 2 bed, 600 square foot house in like East LA near Monterey Park with like 7 people sharing like a 2 bed apartment. And I think that experience, at least for me, like showed me that there's a lot to do out there and it's a lot to achieve and wanting that to do more to take care of our parents, right? And I kind of wonder, like, what was your experience like growing up in that type of environment? Like, what was your mindset back then in terms of like how you view the world, right? And I understand for most Vietnamese Americans growing up in that situation, it's really hard to think big. It's really hard to go out there and just why can I be the one like shaking up the world, right? Which is you're doing that right now. What was your mindset during that time period that kind of led you down like the growth path that made you realize at one point that you want to pursue this creative career?
Oh man, it didn't happen till a lot later. I had no idea this was it. But at the time, it was a lot of it just felt like survival, survival mode. For me personally, I had trouble in school. I was bullied a lot. You know, the last name didn't help, Stephen Ho. Didn't really feel like I had like the right role models around me. Parents are always busy, you know, I don't blame them, you know, but growing up in the generation I did, you know, the opinions of the kids didn't really matter as much as today. So, you know,
Yeah.
whatever was happening in school, whatever trouble you were having with, whether like with bullies or teachers who were giving you a hard time was, you know, they didn't have time to kind of figure out your problems when they themselves were trying to figure out, you know, how to survive in this new country where they didn't speak the language and just trying to
Yeah.
make, you know, a buck to feed the family. So growing up, again, yeah, it was just a lot of survival mode. I didn't really know what was going on. I think I was upset a lot because I couldn't explain it. I do remember watching, you know, the time I did spend with my parents. We were either sitting at home watching TV because it was just a cheap thing to do. And like you mentioned
Hmm.
earlier, Paris by Night was like a big part of, you know,
Yeah.
sitting there watching TV. It was either Paris by Night or what I remember watching random like Jim Carrey videos or like Tom and Jerry stuff where people move a lot rather than having to use a lot of dialogue,
Yeah.
you know, because comedy translates through cultures that doesn't really involve language, right? Like Tom and Jerry, a
Yeah.
lot of slapstick comedy. The Three Stooges, we watched a lot of Three Stooges.
Hmm.
I Love Lucy, that black and white sitcom that involved a lot of like facial expressions and sound. Um, so I watched a lot of that with them, and I remember this is actually. I think I'm just realizing this now that like
Hmm.
watching it with them and watching Paris by Night. There's a lot of sketch comedy in that, right? Like Young
Yeah.
Sung, that's about the girl, and there was a lot of that too. But like that, like watching those with my parents, we connected, and that was the one time we kind of connected on something like, oh, we're both enjoying this one thing because we're both laughing. And I think that's really where, you know, this need to make people laugh came from because it's like, oh, this is what pleases my parents when I'm with them. I think we should try
Yeah.
to into this later on.
Yeah. And for our listeners that don't know what Paris by Night is, it's a very popular Vietnamese comedy slash music show that I swear every Vietnamese family has at least watched one or two episodes.
It's
Uh,
it's a variety show, right? It's a
yeah.
variety. There's a host, and so they just have every single person in Vietnam who has any sort of talent come on stage and
Hmm.
just do whatever. It's mostly singing, whether it's like contemporary, it's operatic singing, there's sketch comedy, you know, there's acting. What else is there? There's dancing. It's
Yeah.
very visual. It's very like just like grand, you know.
Yeah.
But
No,
it's like a whole night. It's like a night at the theater. But it's like a variety show. It's anything and everything.
no, it's fun. And I can't believe like it went on for like a good 20, 30 years. It basically never stopped. Right. I think there's last time I stopped by like Westminster, which is the Vietnamese area in Southern California. I swear that series is still going on, which is crazy for like
It's
30 years.
it's all we had, man. You know, like it's all we had after leaving Vietnam. Like these families, they go to these different countries, they go to different cities. Like the only way to come back and like try to like remember, you know,
Yeah.
what it was, and you know, it gives them a sense of like home was to watch
Yeah.
Paris by Night, you know?
Yeah, definitely it. Yeah, I mean, my parents will watch up that obsessively all the time, especially every single holiday, every single Lunar New Year's. It's like always playing in the back. People are just
Always in the
laughing.
background. Yeah,
People
always
just
in the back.
what they call nhau. So nhau in Vietnamese or in English translation means party, right? Which is a very
Yeah,
common word for like family gatherings and having aunts and uncles drink beer, having Paris by
yeah,
night in the background. But there's something
yeah.
that you said earlier that I want to elaborate on. Like, as you mentioned, your younger self, you have trouble expressing yourself, right? And to me, looking through your social media content, I've been following since the pandemic, right? It looks like you're able to express yourself really well now, especially your comedy shows and your content and so on. And the reason why I want to elaborate on that is because I feel like for us watching your content, especially the younger generation, when they look at like Stephen Ho, right, and they look at your content, they're like, wow, this guy has it together. He's so funny. He's so witty. He's able to put things together. Why can't I be like that? And I think the point of this podcast is to kind of humanize our creators, right? To show them that it took us multiple steps to get to where we are. And we weren't this polished person that you see today. And I want to talk a little bit more about that in terms of at what point did you realize that you need to create an outlet to like express yourself freely? And even talking about the Asian American experience, right? Like we're always taught to like hide our feelings. So a lot of us are like emotionally traumatized in some ways. Like, how did you, or at what point, or what age, or what stage of your life when you realize that I can express it clearly now and I'm doing a lot better job?
Oh man, I think it took a long time, 24, 25, because that was when I took my first theater class.
Wow.
Theater really opened up the doors for me to be expressive, you know? Up until then, I didn't really know how to like express my feelings. But
Yeah.
with theater, you play a character, and whatever this character is feeling, angry, sad, happy, in love, you have to think, okay, like, how do I show this emotion for this character? And you kind of tap into it yourself. So that's what happened to me. I took my first theater class at 24 because I was in the middle of applying for like medical school and didn't get
Wow.
it, obviously, because it wasn't the path for me. But when I didn't get in, I decided to take a summer and I took some artistic classes, which I've always wanted to do, but was never thought I had time to. So I took a theater 1A class, a piano one class, and a singing 1A class. And yeah, from there, the first theater class, everything snowballed. I met a teacher who believed in me, took a class, did some seeds. He's like, you're pretty castable, Steven. Like, do you want to be part of this play I'm putting on? I'm like, oh my God, you're putting on a play? That's amazing. Like, how do I do that? So he cast me in this play. I had no lines. It was basically I was carrying a sack of potatoes from one one part of the stage to the other. But I loved it. Oh my God. I was like, this is amazing. I'm gonna keep doing this for the rest of my life. So from there, I kept taking theater classes, kept learning how to act, learned more characters, learned a lot more plays, auditioned for community plays around the Bay Area. I was doing this in the Bay Area at the time. And
Wow.
so from 24 to 30, I was doing theater year round while, working in the ER and yeah, taking classes.
That's awesome to hear. Is all sometimes all it takes is one person to believe into what you're doing to change your entire life.
It, it really was. It was one person. His name was Tom Goff. He worked at Foothill Community College in Los Altos. I thought he was a great, you know, I thought he was a great teacher. He was also like, this very dominating male figure. And I think that's something I wanted in my life because, love my dad, but he's Asian, more of a passive man.
Hmm.
So like the first time I got validation from someone who I was like, oh my God, like you look like you really have this world figured out. Like, I like this. Thank you. Maybe it
Yeah.
instilled in me a lot of confidence to keep
Yeah.
going.
No, I think that's awesome to hear, right? And I'm kind of curious too, like I know you could kind of just jumped into it. You took like an acting class. That's a really gutsy move, right? Or what really sparked the decision behind it to be like, oh, I'm gonna like do this and that. What was something that you're looking to gain at the time? Were you looking to be a better public speaker? Were you looking just for a emotional outlet or a new hobby or exploring this curiosity? Like what led to that point of just entering to that class to learn more?
Oh man, I do not know what got into me. I think
Hmm.
I did take a public speaking class that I really liked. No, but no, that was after. That was even after. So I really don't know. I think I was just very fascinated by, music, like the piano. I loved watching YouTubers sing,
Hmm.
but there was an era when we were doing covers for music. It's like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
do that too. Like, I wanted to play the piano, but I also really always wanted to act. I'm like, oh my God, that looks like so much fun. Like, and I must have thought that I was some sort of funny, but I don't know. I honestly have no idea what prompted it. I just knew that like I was missing something, and
Yeah.
I was throwing a lot of darts at the dartboard at the time. I don't know what I was doing, but when after I didn't get in medical school, I'm like, I'm gonna do 180. I'm gonna see
Yeah.
what's out there. I'm just gonna take some classes.
No, I love that. I think it's something about you that kind of propelled you to do it, right? And sometimes you don't know the logic reasoning behind your decisions, but your subconscious mind kind of knows already. You're like, all right, next thing you know, you're in this driver's seat. You're like, oh crap, I just have to navigate this and like see if I like it or not.
Yeah, I honestly cannot remember what it was. Think it was like at the time I was taking like post-bac classes to get to medical school because you have to try to like increase your grade point average. because I
Yeah.
didn't do well in college, and I think I was at the Foothill College taking classes, and this is what it was that they had this program where you could apply for financial aid and take some classes for free. So that
Yeah.
also, oh, if I could take some classes for free, why not just take a few classes to figure some stuff out?
Yeah. No, it definitely reminds me of like the Steve Jobs story, right? The time where he dropped out of school and dropped into this typing class. That's how you have to typography on laptops now, because that class really
Mhm.
inspired him. So I see a lot of parallels to your story too. So flash forward a bit, and this is like 2020 when you are still working your job, as a in this in the medical field, and you're at the time you started creating content on social media, right? I know you put out one video here and there as a way to release your frustration and what's going on during COVID pandemic during the time. Did you ever imagine that this is where this is going to take you at the time, or what was your thought process behind this?
No, man. Well, the thought process. So I was in the Bay Area for a long time, and then I moved to LA when I was 30, where I am now, before the
Uh-huh.
pandemic. 2019, I moved to LA because I wanted to become an actor. I wanted to be, I wanted to go to
Yeah.
LA. Everything happens. So I applied to a job in LA, got it, moved down here, and I think I was here for less than a year before the pandemic happened. But within that
Wow.
year, it was like hustling, right? I
Yeah.
got, I got an agent. I was doing a sketch show
Well, you're serious.
in Santa Monica. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was taking improv classes. I took a stand-up comedy class. I was like dabbling in all these things that I knew this is what I needed to do to build connections and, keep my skill set fresh. It was also a creative outlet, right? I was able to act with people on stage. I was able to do comedy. I was doing improv. I got to audition. I got to meet people. When COVID shut everything down and I was forced to work in the ER for like 48 hours or
Wow.
whatever needed because, everyone got sick. We were short staffed. They needed all hands on deck. I was burning out. I was going crazy. And plus, like, we weren't seeing anybody. Everything was shut down. So I'm going to work. I'm going home. Going to work. I'm going home. There's nobody around me. Nobody wants to hang out with the guy who works in the ER, right? We didn't know what it was at the time. I was contagious. It was dangerous. So, what is there to do but like sit on your phone and watch these silly little TikToks where I'm like, all right, well, I think I had like a funny idea. I was like, if they're doing it, I'm gonna throw out a funny idea. Let's see what happens. And
Yeah.
then that's what sparked it. I needed a creative outlet. I was going crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely create some very memorable lines, right? And for our listeners who are watching or have watched Steven's content before, tips in the ER. Sorry, I'm not saying that right. But it's awesome that you're able to come up with such memorable taglines, right? How'd you even learn to like do those taglines? Like, was it taught in those improv classes or something you just instinctively came up with to add more
No,
humor to it? How'd you come up with these two taglines?
I have no idea. It was literally my friend was trying to help me. He was like, dude, just like you work in the ER. Like tell us what's happening in the ER. Give us some tips from the ER. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Maybe I'll do that one.
Yeah.
Was literally like, I was trying to figure out how to how to say it in front of a camera where like people remember. So, it starts off tips from the ER, and I would give a little tip from the ER. The fucker thing was not premeditated. It happened because I was trying to commit. I was trying to commit to the bit to make it interesting to keep people engaged. And it kind of it just happened. It literally just happened. And after like the first video, I'm like, oh, okay, people like that. Let's just try it again. And like 4 or 5 videos in, I'm like, I guess it's my thing now.
Yeah, it definitely adds a lot more character to your videos. And truth be told, like you're going super viral during the pandemic, and I'm pretty sure all of us saw your content. I was sharing it to my friends as well, and I was like, wow, this is. We always end up joking over like Zoom. Back then, it was like during the pandemic, it's like Zoom calls, like, yeah, just like basically the way you say it. And I think that's like the profound impact that you had, right? Whether that's a good thing or not.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny because it's a naughty word, but everybody was saying it. Like I had parents who were like sending me videos of their kids saying it.
oh
It was the most surreal thing, but yeah, it stuck. I didn't know it was going to happen. I honestly had no idea.
no, but we love it anyways. And I think some of your stories are so funny. And looking at some of the articles that you interview in the past as well, just sharing some of the stories in the ER sounds pretty crazy, right? And I mean, just from your top of your mind, like what are some memorable stories that you had during your time in the ER during the pandemic that you're like, wow, that really happened? And also like you shared a lot of bits, right? How much of it is like factual? How much is like satire? Like, how'd you even come up with all these bits and creativity?
Um, Dude, when I was working on the ER, man, it's I mean, anyone would tell you it's easy. Like so many things happen. Like when I was on a roll and I was making
Yeah.
videos for the ER, I knew what I was gonna make a video about 10 minutes into my shift. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what we're talking about. It happens so there's so much. It happens so fast because there's also so much that people don't know about the ER, right? Which
Yeah.
I found out. The more I did it, the more I learned that, oh, this would be an interesting topic to talk about because like they're gonna enjoy this. They don't know about it.
Yeah.
All the stories I tell are true. Not they haven't all happened to me specifically, right?
Hmm.
I get a lot of inspiration now from, my followers. I get a lot of inspiration now from like my coworkers. I go to my comedy shows now, and there's a QR code where you can scan it, and you could tell me a story that happened to you in the hospital,
Yeah.
and I would tell some of those stories on stage, and then whatever I had left, I would take those home and like get inspiration from those and create, well, how would this be incorporated into the ER? Because I worked in the ER for 10 years. I could pretty much put any scenario. I know exactly if you give me an idea, I know exactly how that would go in the ER. So a lot
Yeah.
of it, a lot of like, I mean, I don't know if the stories they give me are true, but they all come from someone's experience in the ER, if not mine anymore.
Yeah. I mean, for good or for bad, I can see how that's very humorous. I mean, some of the stories you mentioned is like you just have to Google it real quick, right? It's like, dang, this actually did happen. This is kind of crazy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of it's true.
Yeah. So let's take it up one more step, right? I mean, definitely you create very good viral content that went that got you to, obviously go super viral. At one point, did you realize that I want this as my full-time career and I had to step away from my job now? What was the realization behind that moment where you're like eating a bowl of cereal and you're like, oh no, I gotta quit my job. I'm not passionate about this anymore. What was like the thought that occurred to you is like, maybe this can be a real thing.
Oh man, I mean, even before the TikToks blew up, I think I was always looking for a way out. You
Wow.
know, well, it wasn't what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to do theater. I wanted to act. I wanted to like, do Shakespeare. So when I got to LA, like I was the whole reason behind everything was to try to like work less in the ER, right? Take all the
Hmm.
classes, go to auditions, do stand-up comedy. So when the TikToks happened, I'm like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been looking for the past 5 years. Like it was a no-brainer. As soon as everything started blowing up, I'm like, this is my way out, right? But it happened a lot more. It happened quicker than I thought it was going to be. Like everything blew up so fast. Like things started happening. I started getting busier because people were presenting me with more opportunities, and it was more valuable for me to sit at home for 8 hours and make a video than it was for me to go work 12 hours in the ER.
Yeah.
You know, so I just at one point I was just like, I can't. I gotta commit. But also my job at the hospital was like they had issues with me making videos and cursing online. So
Oh
they were like,
wow.
"Hey, you gotta stop." I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna stop. So I'm gonna do this and peace out."
Well, I'm glad everything worked, right? And this really shows me that there's no overnight success and that you're obviously looking for this opportunity for a long time. I think that's kind of like the misconception nowadays, especially with the younger or newer generation. It's always like, oh, it must be an easier, faster way out. But I think you put in so much years of thinking about this that when the opportunity came, like your subconscious mind kind of took over. And it's like, Steven, you gotta do this, all right? You gotta go out there and like take this more seriously than the average
Oh yeah,
person. That could be a good way out for you. So
oh
as
yeah.
you are blowing up and getting to like, I would consider you like a A-list creator tier, right? With the content, who you are. As you're getting up and you're meeting all these like old school, quote unquote Asian YouTubers, what was going through your mind to kind of find yourself at these events with them and interacting? And they find yourselves like a fan of them, and they're also a fan of you. Like, what was like the first like initial feeling like?
Oh man, it's pretty surreal because it happened like how I think like how you were saying earlier. They would come up to me and be like, "What's up?" And I'm like, I was like, "Oh, like I've been watching you for the last decade." you know who I am? Like, yeah, watch the videos. I love you. Like, I love you. But it was, I feel like a lot of the people I meet in the Asian community, especially who've been creating a long time, they're still so humble, They still believe that there's still so much work to be done. No one has necessarily had a huge ego or believe they're at the top yet. People like Kathy Nguyen welcomed me with open arms. We chatted. She's awesome. Jason Chen, who sings Wong Fu Productions, Phil met me for the first time, was like, you're up next, guys. Like, we're looking to you to be the next, generation of Asian creators who's gonna like take us to the next level. So there was a lot of that, and it was great. It was very sweet, because I didn't know I didn't know that's who I was, right? When I was creating the content, like I'm dressed in freaking scrubs and talking about the hospital. I didn't necessarily see myself as an Asian creator or doing
Yeah.
anything Asian online. So it was kind of odd to me for them to be like, dude, you represent us. I'm like, I thought I represented the hospital, but I guess you guys feel this too. So I guess we're all here doing it together. So it was
Yeah.
odd. It's still weird for me to try to grapple with it because when I go do my shows these days, no Asians show up. Yeah,
Oh
it's
no.
a lot of white people.
Yeah.
So it's a little hard for me to be like, I am an Asian creator and I am here doing it for you guys. But
Yeah.
hopefully that changes.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely warms my heart to hear like these OG creators like really welcome you into the community. And it's what we need more of, right? Just
Yeah.
like this warm welcome, creating this path. And eventually you're gonna pass the torch to like some other person that's rising up right now. Right. But for
Yeah.
now, you're in the spotlight. You enjoy your flowers, enjoy your moment, right? Make the most of the opportunity because it's your time right now. To be honest, it is your time. And I know, like, you kind of pivoted towards more comedy shows, and a lot of your shows were sold out across the US. How did that even happen?
Oh man, it was something I've always wanted to do. Like I love the stage. Like I said, that's how where I started in theater. I love the live shows. I love going to them. I love performing them. I love watching them. I love everything about it. So, when the opportunity happened, when COVID was over and I had the chance to be back on stage, right? I was like, I had to do it. The problem was when I wanted to do stand-up comedy, I was still very new, right? So I didn't have a lot of time. They're expecting you to do an hour. I
Right.
had probably I don't think I've ever done more than 12 minutes at that point. So when I said I wanted to do stand-up comedy again, I had to put on my own show in LA at this 20 seat venue, this tiny little grungy venue in Hollywood. And I said, hey guys, I'm putting on a show, sold out immediately. And by the time I got there was a line, there was a huge line for people who wanted to watch. And like, there's no space. Like I had no idea you guys were gonna come watch this comedy show. But it helped because now, like, okay, I had to get better really fast. So I had a friend, his name is Jack Jr. He owns the Haha Comedy Club in North Hollywood. He helped me put together a show. He took me on the road. I got stage time in front of different audience members. Um, and yeah, I I think it's something I've always wanted to do. So, it wasn't like something I was like, oh, maybe I should start this now. And like, it wasn't out of the blue. It was something like, again, like we talked earlier, like it's
Yeah.
been relating in my head for the last
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah. That's the power of manifesting, in my opinion, right? Just thinking about it, letting it live in your subconscious mind. And when the opportunity comes, you spot it. You make it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's it. It is exactly it. Manifesting or whatever the kids call it these days. But you put enough energy and effort and whatever you want, like, an opportunity will eventually come. And then you got to recognize that, oh, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for, you know?
Yeah.
But what if it comes and you weren't thinking about it? And like, you're just gonna let it pass, You're just like, well, that's whatever. I've seen that before. But if
Yeah.
you've been looking for that opportunity, like there's a lot of opportunities that aren't gonna look right. When something happens, you're like, oh, wait, that's different. Go there.
Yeah. I
That,
mean, that's amazing to hear, and especially learning how to be good on stage from 12 minutes to 1 hour. It's a huge, massive jump, by the way.
yeah, I mean, well, it took like, a long time. I mean, not long in like the comedy world, It usually takes like Ali Wong, for example, right? Her first special came 10 years into her career, right?
Yeah.
10 years. It took 10 years for her to come up with an hour special. She was doing it for 10 years. So my hour right now is probably not. you know, very well polished. Obviously, it needs a lot of work, and it's very tailored towards my audience, who are a lot of healthcare workers. So it's going to need a lot of work. But yeah, from 12 to an hour, it usually takes years.
Yeah, I'm glad you have a really good mindset regarding that, right? It's obviously a very growth mindset that there's a lot of areas to improve and get better. What are some like experience you have on stage? How, like, what do you do when you like blank out? What do you do when you're feeling stressed? Because it's not like you're like in a good mood every single time you hop on stage, right? How do you like get a feel for the crowd and like get yourself into it?
I'm still figuring all that out, man. I think every comedian that I talk to, they tell you it takes, it takes years to find who you are on stage and how you present yourself, and how to find your voice is what they call it. But right now, I mean, I'm still learning, still learning how to deal with hecklers, still learning how to deal with a crowd that has low energy as opposed to high energy, right? I'm learning that, like, if you do a show Friday night, people are coming from work, so they're going to be tired. You're right. If you do a show Saturday, people have a little bit more energy because they don't have work. If you do a late show Friday or Saturday, people are going to be pissed drunk. So you got to be prepared for like that. If you do show Sunday or Thursday, it's kind of an off night, right? People aren't normally going out. So prepare for a lighter crowd, or, crowds that maybe not necessarily want to be there because they're worried about work the next day. Um, but yeah, man, I'm still learning. It's a lot. Like there's so many little things that happen during a live show, especially when it's just you on stage, right?
Yeah.
It's you, mic, and a stool, and like if one audience member decides like they're not going to shut the then now you got to deal with this person, the heckler, make sure they're either get kicked out or you calm them down because the rest of the people are trying to enjoy the show. And then there's the fact that the servers are walking around taking orders and dropping drinks, and people are chit chatting, taking orders. Is that happens too? And yeah, I mean, so, sometimes you blank. It's hopefully you fake it till you make it, till you remember the next joke. And if a
Yeah.
joke fails, you either move on, you call it out, or you start talking to the audience and try to distract them, make them not feel weird. It's a lot. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there's so many elements to it. It's so fascinating to hear, right? I don't know if I'm built for those type of things. Like, I think if I went on stage, I'd probably just blank out like crazy. So mad props to you for getting better every single time. And I kind of, obviously we're working with Meta for this podcast. How have you been able to cultivate your following and your community on like Facebook, IG, Threads? Like I know there's different strains for different platforms, right? How do you like been cultivating your community on like IG?
Oh man, posting a lot, make sure they know that I'm still there. But you're right, that everything is kind of different for each platform. So, when you make a video for YouTube Shorts, it has to be less than 60 seconds. If you make a video
Mm,
for Instagram Reels, it has to be less than 90 seconds, right? If you want, to be able to monetize on Facebook, the video has to be at least 3 minutes, right? So you gotta think about like what's the best way to present your material for all these platforms, right? Sometimes it's cutting, sometimes it's adding. But for the most part, I think it's interesting because I think the community is built because actually, I have I have no idea because I try to do as many stories as I can. I
yeah.
try to like real time, face to face. I do a couple live. The lives are fun. I do lives every once in a while.
Hmm.
But I think more so than anything, like the live shows have been like the biggest way to like cultivate a community.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just a thing with like the healthcare community too. I don't think there's a lot of healthcare influencers who are necessarily doing it at this level.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was working in healthcare, I was always looking for entertainment, someone who knew what I was going through. It was always
Hmm.
fun. It's shared trauma.
Yeah.
So it's easier to be like, oh, he gets me. He knows what I'm going through. He knows me. I gotta support this guy.
Yeah. No, definitely do understand that. And kind of swing back the conversation towards yourself, right? And as you're going through these comedy shows, I'm pretty sure like you're feeling a lot of different things. life's probably super chaotic, a lot of different things coming in different directions. How do you take care of yourself? Right. And that's the one thing I like to ask creators because, if you see a long-term career in this, like you're going to be doing this for like 5, 10, 15 years from now, how do you keep yourself like creating good content and getting up and being motivated every single day? Because that's difficult, right? Burnout, like creator burnout is real. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you felt it a few times. How do you like power through it each and every time?
It is real. I think it's important for creators to try to find a community or find people to work with to bounce ideas off of. Because what's different from like us creating content for social media and like, say, for example, creating a TV show, there's a huge team behind creating like a TV show or a movie, right? There's so many moving parts. There's so many people you have to rely on, people that rely on you, right? There's a community when you're creating videos by yourself, it's all you. If it works, if it fails, it's all you. If it works, you're the happiest, right? Nothing is better than if it works and it's just you. Like you did it, it's great. But if shit starts not working, the views go down, there is no one to share that sadness with. And that'll really up. You'll really go into, a dark place. You'll spiral.
Mm,
So it's always better to have people you can, do these crazy emotional ups and downs with. So definitely find some people that that can relate to what you're going through, and take care of yourself. I take care of myself by trying to exercise. I always feel better after I wake up, stretch out, exercise, get some water, eat some food, eat some good food. Right? I try to cook as much as possible when I'm home.
hmm
Don't eat the junk because that I believe that all affects the mood and energy. I try not to drink too much,
hmm
but it's it all of that, man. Get some people that you can rely on, who believe in you, who you trust,
Yeah.
who can who knows what you're going through, and then eat right, exercise, keep yourself healthy, and yeah.
Yeah. I actually feel like creators don't get enough credit because I think that becoming a creator is just as extensive as being like an entrepreneur. All right. You have to worry about so many different things, your passion, video creation, making money, evolving your business per se.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Oh yeah, because the thing is the barrier to entry to become a creator is nothing. Anybody could do it. Anybody can start figuring it out. The problem is you start doing it and you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, like I feel like I've reached the extent of my knowledge. Is there
hmm
anybody here who can help me? And you look around and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I started this by myself. I'm here by myself, right? As opposed to like if you join a company, your hand is held, right? You're on orientation for 3 months. They show you exactly what to do. And if you have questions, you ask, and there's like, there's clearly written somewhere where like this is what you need to do to move up in life in this company, right? When you're creating, like you never know what's gonna happen, right? You never know if a
Yeah.
video is gonna go viral, and if it does, okay, what happens next? What do I do next? Like who's
hmm
gonna teach you how to do this stuff? It's very entrepreneurial, it's very all on your own. And it's because the barrier to entry is so low that anybody can do it. But you know, the downside is that you're not gonna get a lot of help in the beginning.
Yeah. That's hard for sure, man. And just kind of talk about some of your like internal struggles and kind of be more vulnerable with the audience. What are some times that you felt like kind of hopeless and really lonely during the process? Like find yourself spiraling. How do you stop that spiral? And like what were some things that were going through your mind when things were not working out? Right? Because I feel like being a creator, being an entrepreneur, like you're walking into a world of 1,000% uncertainty, right? You're like, which am I stepping in the right direction? Am I stepping sideways? Am I stepping backwards? I have no idea. Like, what were
Yeah.
some of your like most vulnerable times that you kind of faced?
So in the beginning, when I was creating content, it happened where I just had a lot of questions, because what happens when you blow up to a certain extent, people are going to start reaching out to you, right? And here's the
hmm
thing of like content creating in Hollywood and this stuff in general, right? You haven't really made it until somebody is trying to exploit you for money, okay? And it's going to happen if you become big enough. Someone is going to be like, hey, I can help you. I deserve some money from you. So,
Mm.
I had these random people who are like, I can represent you. Here's some brand deals, so and so. And I didn't know how much to charge, right? Like again, I didn't know like how much am I worth? Like they're offering me this. I'm like, that's amazing. And I talk to someone else, they're like, that's nothing. And I talk to someone else, that's amazing. It was just a lot of information that nobody knew. So what I did was I started reaching out to other creators who are like big, who I was watching. I just DM'd them. And I was like, hey, just kind of, I'm a big fan. Like, love what you do. Like, was hoping maybe we could talk. And I did that to a lot of people. And the one person who answered me was Jeannie Weenie, Sandra Kwan. Jeannie Weenie, the flight
Love
attendant.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. She answered me on Instagram. She didn't just answer me, she FaceTimed me like the day of. Like, oh my God, what's happening? Like a huge creator is FaceTiming me. I was like, oh my God. She FaceTimed me. She's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, I'm good. Hi. It's like, nice to meet you. And then she answered all my questions. And then she invited me to a dinner in LA where I met like 10 other creators who were just hanging out. And, so from there, I met a few really good friends. And then I met more people and then eventually found the people who I wanted to be in my circle. And, and anytime I feel some sort of way about the creating, I would call them and I'd be like, hey, like, not feeling great. I don't know what's going on. What are you guys up to? And they talk me off the ledge. Maybe we create a video together, and then I'm back on my the next day.
Yeah. I mean, I love Jeannie. I mean, I personally love her a lot too. And she's actually one of our speakers for our conference in 2 weeks. So,
Yeah, I saw her and her husband, right? Her
yeah.
and Johnny, dude, I can't tell you how much they have helped me. Like without them, I don't know where I'd be. But they have helped me so much in the past, 4 years. I owe them everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I
Wow.
think I think they have been the most valuable friendship in this space since the beginning.
Wow. I love
But
that
that's
for
but
sure.
that's what you need. That's what you gotta have try to find these people who are generous and who want to help you, but you also connect in a way where like you enjoy being around each other too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy that you're able to find your tribe of support, right? And this is like valuable information that people need to hear. It's like you can't do this alone. You can. It's gonna be a lot more difficult, right? But at the end of the day, it's like you need the support because this is very emotionally straining, I would say, in terms of trying to make this happen. And you need people who have similar experience to kind of like coach each other, motivate each other through.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. You absolutely need. You cannot do this alone. You know.
Yeah.
You can face of your social media by yourself, but like you need some people around you. So I'm
Yeah.
still trying to do it too. I'm still trying to learn to work with people because I've
Yeah.
always, again, like I grew up just in survival mode, every
Hmm.
man for himself. You know, I do stand-up comedy. It's a one-man show. I've done so much stuff where I'm like I can do it on my own.
Yeah.
This year, I'm starting to really learn how to like, okay, how do we delegate? How do we hire people? How do we get a manager I can work with where I don't have to think about things, you
Hmm.
know? And then on top of that, how do I make sure I keep myself sane by like talking to the right people and keeping them in my
Yeah.
circle? But yeah,
Yeah.
man, you can't do it. You have this content creation that you can start by yourself, obviously, but it gets to a certain point where you're just like, I need someone to talk to about this stuff.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, kind of build on top of what you just said, right? How are you thinking about yourself and your career, and where do you want to take this in the next few years?
Right now I'm in the process of really trying to like work out, how I can keep up putting the content out while I go and do stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
This year is actually gonna be crazy. This is my last weekend that I have free in
Wow.
LA. And then I'm booked every weekend up until Halloween.
Whoa. That's like 6 months. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now I'm just trying to figure out, okay, like how do we go do comedy 4 days a week, come back, film all these videos, hand it to the team. That's why you gotta get the team together, have them try to figure it out with me there, and then post these videos. So I think that this next year, or maybe 2 years, is trying to figure out how to do that because I don't want to stop the stand-up comedy. Eventually get a good, set. Hopefully we can make a special out of it. And then, keep growing and audition for some cool things, maybe move on to like some better projects, bigger projects, whether it's I do it or somebody else funds it. But yeah, just the goal. I think the goal for a lot of these creators is to get something mainstream.
Hmm.
Actual TV, actual movies, Hollywood. Try to tap in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of what it is right now.
No, that's exciting. It feels like what does it say? Like the world's your oyster, and anything you want to do is achievable. You just have to do it and believe in yourself every
Yeah.
step along the way.
Mhm. Oh yeah, you just gotta put your head down, get to work, find the right people to surround yourself with, and I honestly do believe anything is possible after working in the ER for so long and doing theater for free for so many years. Like this is like incredible.
Yeah. And that's good advice too, because I think that a lot of people, they want to obviously getting paid right off the bat is a great thing, but all the years you put into an effort, you're eventually gonna get paid your worth, right? All the effort and knowledge that you're gonna eventually, it's gonna catch up to you. You just have to look like more long term. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
As long as you stay focused, don't there's a lot of distractions, but stay focused.
Definitely. So I know we're getting close to the end of the podcast. I want to end it with a few more questions. So if you can go back to any point of your, obviously your content creating career, what is one thing that you would do better, or is one thing that you want to change or improve along the way?
Um, I wish I would have gotten. I wish, like we said earlier, I really wish I wouldn't have had that mindset of I could do this on my own so
Mm,
long. I really wish I had put that team together in place earlier to try to, I wish I would have learned to be a better manager, delegator. I think it would have really uh, helped me, in my career now. But it's okay. I'm figuring it out. I'm figuring it out now. It's not never too late. I think that's one thing I would change. Definitely try to like, learn to work with others more.
yeah, I mean that's really good advice too. Another corny quote. If you want to go fast, you go by yourself. You want to go far, you go with a group of people, and that's exactly
Yeah.
what you learn to figure out.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like I know like it's so true. It's so true. You can't do it all on your own, man. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible if you're trying to reach a certain level that I think everyone is trying to get to. Like to some extent, you can do a lot on your own, but
Yeah.
it gets lonely and it gets hard. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you found your tribe. It looks like obviously whenever time I watch your content, it looks like it's a fun tribe making cool content together. I'm like, man, it must be so fun being a content creator. At least what I
Yeah,
think.
it's
Yeah.
it's it has its perks.
Yeah. Wait, let's quickly talk about the perks. What's the biggest perk you ever got being a content creator?
Oh, biggest part of being a content creator, not having to go into work,
Mm-hmm.
not having to drive in LA traffic across city, not having to pay for
Yeah.
parking, not having to answer to a boss.
Yeah.
A lot of great perks. You gotta wake up whenever you want. You gotta go to cool events, you gotta meet people, you gotta make an impact, people
Yeah.
watch the video. They're like, oh my God, like, you did so much for me during COVID, you know?
No, you did. Yeah, you definitely did a lot for myself too. So I'm a huge fan. So thank you so much for that, Stephen. I guess
Yeah.
final question is what is one advice you have for like new content creators trying to break into the scene nowadays and seeing how saturated the market has become? Like, what is it one advice you have for them trying to break through?
Oh man, if you're trying to create, hopefully you talk about what you know, be authentic. I think what really works these days is, people talking directly to the camera, just being themselves, telling a story. And I think that's because, these days we're so focused on our phone. We have such little, I guess, social, I don't know what it is, but like I feel like a lot of us are just so alone in our homes these days and we don't have enough people around us. We look to our phones and the people who are just casually in the living room talking about a story that happened to them yesterday. Like I went on a date. It feels like you have somebody there with you, you
Yeah.
know? So it feels like you're there with somebody and not alone. I think that content right now is killing. So be yourself, talk about what you know, try to be as authentic as possible, and just know that it's not one video that's gonna do it for you. So you
Mhm.
gotta keep throwing stuff out there. You're trying to
No,
break
that's
it.
That's really, really good advice, Stephen. And yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the podcast. I really appreciate you being so heartful, walking through your entire story, talking about Paris by Night, working in ER, making your way to where you are today. So huge congratulations and everything. You should be very proud.
Thanks, man. Yeah, yeah. It's hard to remember sometimes, but yes, I am very proud.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Stephen, for being on the podcast today. For you guys, we'll leave everything in the show notes. You can follow Stephen if you don't already know who he is, very famous guy. But Stephen, thank you so much again, and thank you for your time. We'll see you around.
Yeah, man. Thank you.